While recording the second podcast in the sermon series, The Playbook, Pastor Larry and Mark discussed recent changes made at General Conference. This episode is just that conversation. In the next episode, we will return to The Playbook. From Suncrest United Methodist Church in Morgantown, West Virginia, this is The Rev Rambles On.
The General Conference of the United Methodist Church finished their meeting last week and came with some significant decisions. Would you just briefly speak to those and how they might impact Suncrest United Methodist Church?
I will. There will be, I don't have it all in front of me, but there will be a few that we'll mention, and we'll be talking about this, I'm sure, and probably the remainder of 2024 in some capacities. But the General Conference, if you don't know, is the body of the United Methodist Church worldwide that is elected by each annual conference. And West Virginia has an annual conference, and the equalization is clergy to lay. So we had 3 voting delegates, clergy, and 3 lay, and then you have alternates in all of those, and they all go, and it was held in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that means 12 delegates from West Virginia went for the 700 plus delegates that were there in Charlotte. Worldwide, yes. And bishops from all those conferences are there, of course. And then you're able, if you want to go, you can go as a guest and register and view and watch as a spectator of it. You just don't have a vote. Bishops also, I think it's important to know, do not vote.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
really?
Bishops do not get a vote. Just like, for example, Mark, when we have a vote here at the church, me as pastor, I don't have a vote.
That's right. I did know that.
I can have a voice and share my opinion or thoughts and beliefs, but I don't have a vote at the end of the day. So the same way is with the bishops with the General Conference. So a couple of things that took place are that regionalization was passed by more than 2/3, meaning that, for example, all the annual conferences outside of the United States, there are some issues already without this regionalization that they can adapt to their culture. So I'll use the African church for an example. If the African church does not feel like their culture aligns with something in the Book of Discipline, because they are a central conference, they can align for what best fits for their culture and their beliefs. So the regionalization, if it passes, because when I say if, is now all the annual conferences around the world have to vote whether or not to pass regionalization or not. And there's an aggregate vote. So what West Virginia votes, it won't matter what the West Virginia total is. It'll be sent in for all the other annual conferences. And then from the world, you need 2/3 of that vote to pass regionalization. What does regionalization do? It allows the United States church now to also do the same that the other central conferences have been able to do in the past. So if there is something that affects our country, the United States of America, that wouldn't affect the global church, then the United States church can work with their discipline to best suit them. I'm an ordained elder, Mark, and I'm ordained the word, service, table, and order. And what really the change in ordaining deacons who are ordained to word and service, compassion and justice, what they now have are sacramental rights.
That's a second thing that was passed. The
Yes.
Deacons have the sacramental rights.
So instead of just word and service, they are now word, service, and table.
Which means they can do communion.
Communion and baptism.
Baptism.
Communion and
Marriages?
baptism. What's that?
Marriages?
Marriage is not
That's
listed
right.
as a sacrament in the United Methodist Church,
Right.
but in the Roman Catholic Church,
Right.
it is.
Right.
So if they're licensed to do a wedding, they can.
Right.
And so that's the changes that's a big change for deacons, because oftentimes deacons were in the role of in their churches assisting in baptisms, doing collaboration with the order of the liturgy for Holy Communion and serving, but not doing the blessing words of the sacrament. So that's a great opportunity for deacons. Probably the biggest thing that we'll talk about is that since 1968, the Evangelical United Brethren merged with the Methodist Church to become the United Methodist Church. In 1972, there was language that was added to the Book of Discipline that was not in there, and it said homosexuality is incompatible with Christian teaching. So those words were added. Pre-1972, not there.
Or since 1800s.
1800s, yes. So now in 2024, after a 40-year plus every 4 years of the General Conference, other than 2020 when COVID happened. We did not have a General Conference. This is actually still called the 2020 General Conference in 2024 because we didn't get to have one, but we won't get into all that. However, the vote was changed. The vote wasn't changed. The vote happened, and the results were different.
Change the discipline.
Change the discipline. It takes only the General Conference every 4 years can change the book of discipline of the United Methodist Church. It changed by a 93% margin. That's an incredible margin. Worldwide. And I'll go ahead and put out there, because there are some folks talking about there were some African delegates that did not get to make it. What I want people to know is I have a pretty good idea with 93%, even if those folks would have made it, it still would have passed if they would have voted no. Because there are African delegates that are believed to have voted yes. And have voted yes for regionalization as well.
It's not a declared vote.
That's right. There are many African delegates that are for regionalization because they also want their freedom to continue as the African church to be a central conference as well. So what does that mean now, Mark? What it means for the United Methodist Church is that clergy who are homosexual can now, according to each annual conference's Board of Ordained Ministry, can discern the gifts for ministry. They cannot be penalized for being a homosexual.
By region.
By regions, as an annual conference decides. Now, they can't be penalized regardless.
Right, right.
However, being ordained will be up to boards of ordained ministry, but they are supposed to be then looked at upon gifts and graces. Now, there may be an board of ordained ministry that aligns with the scriptural context to believe that that should not happen. What next happens is then clergy can now do same-sex weddings in the United Methodist Church.
Okay.
I'll go on.
All right, keep going, because there's some ands.
In a place that they can first make the decision to do a wedding if it is not on church property, first of all. They can make that decision for themselves now and not be penalized.
Okay.
Where it comes in next is churches, local churches body. It's thought to be with the trustees, but who knows what that'll look like in local churches. That the trustees will have the opportunity to discern, with hopefully collaboration with the church's leadership, whether or not same-sex weddings can happen on church property. And so that's where it gets interesting as we move forward. Most church leaderships and trustees probably have not had a chance to digest all of this yet. But in the meantime, that is where the General Conference results bring the United Methodist Church on the local level to decide how they will handle weddings in the future. Now, clergy, regardless, do not have to do any wedding. There have been couples that have come to me, heterosexual couples that I've chosen not to do the wedding for. It's the same way. There's no wedding that any clergy person has to do with this ruling. So what I want to say to people, at least I want to speak on behalf of my leadership at Suncrest United Methodist Church, is that worship is not going to change. We're going to continue to be who we are. We already say all are welcome here. We believe we're an inclusive congregation, and we believe every person to be of sacred worth, and we love all. That's what I believe God calls us to. So in worship, I don't see anything changing at all. And as we continue to serve together, I think I alluded to earlier, we're not going to ask anyone what they believe or who they love on whether or not you can help serve or who we serve, because it's not a serve to, it's a serve with. And so that's where I believe our call is, again, to continue to be the church we already are. I've had conversations, Mark, with people that think differently, and that's okay. I believe this church is large enough, and most of all, I believe God is big enough, as all these different denominations, that if we don't spend the time and energy on what we disagree on, this church can thrive to transform the world.
I like the way you said that on Sunday. Let's concentrate on what we do agree on, because there's a lot more of that than the potential for where we disagree. And the possibility of making a change in the world is much greater to concentrate on what we do believe in together. It's huge.
And we already make choices on the things we do with the churches we belong to. Not everybody comes to the traditional service.
That's true. That's right.
Not everybody comes to the contemporary service. Yep. There might be an activity that we have here at the church that I don't think everybody comes to. They pick and choose. So as we continue on as the church, if Suncrest United Methodist Church has a wedding, heterosexual or homosexual, same-sex wedding, you can pick and choose where you come.
But that decision hasn't been made yet for
It has
Suncrest.
not. It has not. I'm saying if and when
If
that were to
if
happen,
it
or
happens.
any church.
Oh,
Let's
that's
say
true.
any church.
That's true.
Let's
right.
take Suncrest out of it.
Right.
You can pick and choose where you go
Right.
to worship, to a wedding, whatever it looks like. That's our free will. But we can still complete the playbook. We can pray.
Oh, right.
We can be present where God is leading us to be present.
Right.
We can use our gifts, and our gifts lead us to service. And out of when we do all those things, it's a powerful, powerful, powerful witness that the love of Jesus Christ, the gates of hell will not prevail against Christ and his church.
It is. Well, I look forward to the future.
I do too.
I think it's going to be interesting and invigorating. I don't see it as doom and gloom. I think it is positive, and let's get out and be the ecclesias.
Be the ecclesia. Even when we agree to disagree,
We can still do that. We can still reach out, make disciples of
because
Christ.
God loves us all. And if we love God, I think the call is to do the same.
And we recognize that God loves us all.
And in closing, thanks for joining the Rev Rambles On. Mark and I are grateful for you taking time to listen with us. We'd love to hear from you. So if you have questions or comments, please send them our way to Suncrest United Methodist Church, suncrestumc.org. You can email us, or you can find us by just giving us a phone call. We'd love to see you in worship. Have a great week.